deceit, and a lover's scorn. We associate all of these with affairs. Dr. David B. Wexler, clinical psychologist and executive director of the Relationship Training Institute in San Diego, joins me with myths about affair, and he's also the author of 5 books, including Why Good Men Behave Badly. So let's talk about this book. Why are some of the reasons men behave badly?
Well, there's a lot of reasons why men behave badly, but primarily there's a few men who are really just bad guys, and there's such a thing as bad men behaving badly, and you got to stay away from them.
Okay.
But the vast majority of men who, in some way or another, ignore or get sarcastic or critical or actually cheat on their wives or partners, something's usually triggering it for them. They're feeling hurt, they're feeling like their needs aren't getting met, they're feeling they have some unrealistic expectations about relationship. A lot of those men, if you really can work with them, they can turn a lot of that stuff around.
And by needs not being met, are these sexual needs, are these emotional needs?
Sexual needs is like just one small component. If you really look deeply into a man or a woman, the needs we're talking about have to do with emotional needs, managing boredom, dealing with a lot of different kinds of psychological stuff.
So who cheats more in affairs? Who tends to have more? Is it men or women?
Men do cheat more, but it's interesting you ask that because that's starting to change.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's more and more, the numbers are becoming more and more equal between men and women. In fact, in the younger the segment, the 20 to 30-year-olds, it's almost 50-50.
So is the reason sort of that these people have, is that different?
The reasons are different.
Okay.
It's surprising because one of the myths about affairs is that it must mean there's something profoundly wrong with the relationship. And what we find with women, that's almost always true. 80 to 90% of women, when you interview them afterwards, they say, the reason I ended up cheating was because I was so unhappy with the guy I was with. With men, it's about 50-50. About 50% of them will say that. The other 50% say, she's fine. Our relationship's fine. I just, I got tempted, or I wanted something on the side, or, I have greater sexual needs than she does, or whatever. But the relationship is fine. So it isn't necessarily a statement about something flawed between those two people. It may just be an appetite
That's really
issue.
interesting. So sometimes I know women sometimes will feel like, or I mean me as a woman, maybe as a man too, that if your partner cheats, it's something you did.
Right.
But that's not the case at all.
Well, it's sometimes...
Could be if it's like emotional,
yeah, I mean,
but
obviously we know that there's plenty of situations where somebody has an affair where it's a big red flag that something's wrong. But the important thing to emphasize with the myth part is that it's not always the case, and you can't automatically assume it must be something I'm not doing enough or that we aren't doing enough of.
Let's get into these myths. So first, the number one myth, a cheater is a cheater is a cheater.
Right.
Myth?
Yes.
Okay.
Because there are a lot of different kinds of cheaters, and we've already started to talk about some of this. People cheat sometimes because they are profoundly depressed, sometimes because they have a lot of conflict and unhappiness in the relationship, sometimes because they're just chronic philanderers, and we've had a few presidents and golfers we know of who are chronic philanderers who just want conquests. Other people cheat because they are they're never quite satisfied with their lives. They're always looking for something different. There's a lot of different categories.
And you're not just talking about necessarily physical cheating. There's more than one type of cheating. So just because it's not physical doesn't mean it's necessarily not cheating.
Absolutely. And people can be very clever about rationalizing this. They can say, well, we never actually had actual sex, so it doesn't really count. We only had a certain kind of sex, or we never even had sex.
So maybe the myth, I can look, but I just can't touch. That's not true.
Well, you can look very discreetly. I mean, there's a little room for that.
Okay.
But you can't have an emotional relationship with somebody. You can't be sharing secrets or parts of yourself that you wouldn't be sharing with your partner.
And then you also say that the cause of an affair is a flawed marriage. That's a myth.
That's a myth.
Okay.
Well, that is sometimes a myth.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, as we talked about, sometimes that's true, sometimes not.
And then relationships can never truly recover from an affair. You think that they can? I
think that they can. In fact, the statistics show that if people actually choose to work on the relationship, most typically by going into therapy together, about 60 to 70% of relationships do recover from affairs.
So how do you recover? Where do you start?
Well, number one, the person who's been cheating has got to say, it's over. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm staying away from it. The other person can't feel safe otherwise. They also have to say, I feel bad. They have to express genuine remorse about the way that they have hurt or betrayed the other person. There also has to be enough of a relationship to start off with that there's something to go back to. There's something to rebuild. If it was a pretty shaky relationship in the first place, there's not much to recover from. Also, and this is the tricky part, the person who was cheated on, they also have to be willing to work on whatever things have been missing or wrong with the relationship,
Have that
even
patience and
though they're hurt
understanding.
and angry and feel betrayed, they've got to be able to work on the repair job as well.
And then you have to have the commitment from both partners, just both working on it 100%.
Right, and to be very patient. Sometimes people get impatient, like, okay, you know, I stopped the affair, I told you I was sorry about it, now get over it.
Right.
Doesn't work like
Well,
that.
marriage is the #1 commitment you'll make in your life, so I figure, you know, if something like that happens, you got to work at it.
If possible. Obviously, sometimes it can't be recovered from, but I usually urge people at least give it a shot.
And work on your relationship before something like this can happen. Always be working on it. That's sort of what I
Absolutely.
think.
You want to be your partner's #1 confidant and ally. That helps to affair-proof the marriage.
Okay, great. If you want some couples counseling or counseling services, you can go to the Relationship Training Institute. It's at 4036 3rd Avenue in Hillcrest, and the phone number is 619-296-8103. And you can go to fox5sandiego.com, click on the Scene on tab to connect with Relationship Training Institute. And Rollo and Shelley, back to you. It's okay, get all that out.
It's Monday. It's okay.
I'm not very forgiving on that topic.
On cheating?
Yeah. Just saying.